Okay, so years ago, I was working for a mixed martial arts organization. I was a writer. I would interview fighters and write articles about them online to promote the events, the organization as a whole, and online gambling, which was basically their moneymaker. Anyway, one day they were having a big event. It turned out to be their last event, but they didn't know that at the time. Nobody knew that at the time. And they were flying in their champions from the various weight categories, and they had both male and female champions because they were, I think, the first organization to have women's mixed martial arts and, of course, women's mixed martial arts fighters. And some of them were fighting in the event, and some of them were just flying in to do press. You know what I mean? Like, talk to me, talk to other journalists, what have you. And somehow a fellow who worked for a local newspaper heard that the toughest lady in the world was coming to town. And he thought it would be a funny, interesting article if he were to fight her and then write about it. You know, a totally untrained man fighting the toughest lady on earth. And he got a hold of somebody who got a hold of somebody, and that got set up to happen. Already a bad idea for a bunch of reasons. However, there were some other reasons which made this an even worse idea. One, the lady who was flying in, her fiancé had just been killed while serving overseas for the US military. I believe in Afghanistan, but somewhere in the Middle East. And so she was heartbroken. She was very sad, but she felt it was her duty to follow the requests of her employer and do interviews or whatever, because that's what she's being paid to do. So that's weird thing number one. The lady was very sad due to a very recent tragedy. So probably, I don't know if it was a great idea for her to do this, but she decided to do it because, you know, that's her job, so to speak, I guess. Two, the journalist guy, he was untrained, but he had played rugby for quite a few years. And I would say he was probably, I don't know, about 160 pounds maybe. So by my math, that's 25 pounds more than 135. And he was in shape. He was a fit fellow, but totally untrained in terms of martial arts. And if you've been around martial arts, or jiu-jitsu or mixed martial arts or whatever, if you've ever grappled somebody who's like a first day, totally untrained kind of guy, you know how that can be problematic because no one has given them the whole idea that, hey, yeah, we're training, we're fighting, but it's not really a fight. We're not just going to cut loose and try and destroy each other. I'm helping you, you're helping me. Let's just, you know, keep stuff sane here so that nobody gets hurt. Because if you just, you know, cut loose, it's going to be an ugly scene. No one had given them that speech. And sometimes, as you may have experienced, certainly I have, because I've been around for a while, people think that as the newbie, that they are the ones in danger. That they better go full on, otherwise they're going to get messed up, you know? I mean, I don't know how many times I've rolled with a white belt, and they go completely spastic because they think they are the ones in danger, and they go to like their lizard mind, or whatever you want to call it, and think that the best defense is an offense, and so they just go crazy. And then you're in a street fight or whatever. They're going all spazzy and wacky and doing stuff that nobody that's trained for a month or two is going to act like this because they know that it's disrespectful, it's weird, it's dangerous, it's ugly. you probably see where this is going. So the organization had rented a big hotel. And they had rented a bunch of rooms, obviously, for the fighters and their managers and their camps or whatever you call it. And they also had down in the basement a room that had a boxing ring, some training mats, some punching bags and stuff all set up so the fighters that had fights coming up in the next few days could, like, you know, work out a little bit, get in some last minute training. And even those that were just doing press or interviews or whatever, some of the fighters weren't fighting, but they were just coming in to do, you know, media work. Even they could work out if they wanted to. And I just happened to be in the room when this fight unfolded. And it wasn't like a full-on mixed martial arts fight. They were just going to grapple. No punching, no kicking, no flying knees, that kind of thing. Thank God. Otherwise it would have been even uglier. But before they began to fight, the fellow and the lady, she began to give him a private kind of. This is an arm bar. This is a rear naked choke. This is a triangle choke. This is Americana. This is a shoulder lock. This is Kimura. That kind of thing. And that went on for probably 10 or 15 minutes. And at the time, this, like I said, was around 2007, maybe early 2008. I was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and I remember at one point I thought I would sort of chime in, for the lack of a better term. And she was showing him, I think, Americana or Kimura or something. And I said something, I gave some kind of pointer or tip or whatever, some kind of, and she gave me a look that, and she said, I think she said something like, hey, like, you know. So she made it quite clear that my input was not welcome, right? This was her teaching him some stuff, and I can, you know, take off. So I did. I just went and sat across. I didn't leave because I was like, this is going to get ugly. And so I sat across the room and just watched the nastiness unfold. And nastiness did unfold. After 10 or 15 minutes, they began to grapple. And like I said, they weren't punching and kicking each other because that's madness. And but they were, you know, takedowns, looking for submission holds, trying to submit one another and stuff. And like I said, she was very sad. Her fiance had just been killed while serving for the U.S. military overseas. And she wasn't crying, like tears weren't pouring down her face, but her eyes were wet, her eyes were red. And this guy, when he walked in, he seemed completely clueless to this fact. He didn't seem to be able to, like, evaluate, this is a sad lady for some reason. That just was, like, beyond his ability to comprehend. He doesn't, you know, human facial expressions and what have you. Not his thing. And so when they began to grapple, it got really weird really fast because she was not crying, but looking very sad. And he, on the other hand, he was acting like he was on a roller coaster. He was like, wee, ha ha, while doing the most horrendous things. Like, she would put him in a choke and he would, like, slam her, or she would put him in an arm lock and he would, like, spaz out and be kicking his legs all over the place, all the while laughing and cheering, ha ha, wee, hooray. Because he felt like anything he did was no way gonna hurt this lady. She's a world mixed martial arts champion. I can't touch her. I can do anything I want, you know? So he was just cutting loose. And she submitted him again and again and again with, you know, rear naked choke, triangle choke, armbar, Kimura, Americana. But she was being very gentle with him. But he was just being a spaz, goof, idiot. And she was taking some shots, as I recall. You know how it is when you roll a spazzy newbie. Their elbows and knees are flying around, and all the while he's laughing and screaming, wee, ha ha, hooray. And I'm in the corner like, what the hell am I looking at? It's a guy having a really good time while fighting a lady who's not having a really good time and is very sad. To anyone that has two functional eyes and a functional brain, what the hell am I looking at? And there was part of me that wanted to like go over there and intervene and be like, hey, this is unpleasant. This is nasty. What the hell, dude? Her fiance just died. What the hell are you doing? But I didn't do that because, like I said, moments before, when I went over to talk about the Kimura or Americana or whatever, she had told me that my input was not welcome. And besides, I mean, she's a world mixed martial arts champion, you know? She's been in fights. And he's not really putting her in any danger, so to speak. He's not putting her in any submissions. He doesn't put her in any chokes or arm locks or whatever. But he's being way too rough. He's being way too rough. And I think if I had gone over there and said, hey, you're being an ass. Hey, she, you know, her fiance just died. Dial it down, shithead. I think she would have gotten mad that I was, you know, because that wasn't my role. I'm not there to rescue her. She's the world mixed martial arts champion. And this guy's an idiot. And she was winning. She was choking him and arm locking him. And I don't know if she footlocked him, but she was submitting him again and again and again. But if you've done jiu-jitsu or martial arts like I have, you know how it is when you're like experienced and they're not. You know, you choke them, you arm lock them, whatever. And they're spazzing out and acting like an idiot and you're taking a shot here, a shot there. And you're like, hey, how about, you know, how about don't accidentally elbow me in the face 5 times, you know? I have lots of stories about that. But she said nothing to him. I said nothing to him. She submitted him a bunch of times. He was like, wee, ha, ha, hooray, so much fun, you know? And then the grappling, you know, wrapped up and she was, you know when someone's being interviewed after a mixed martial arts fight and their face isn't bleeding, but it is scuffed, it is red, and it's been rubbed, it's been knocked around a little bit. You know, she didn't have a bloody nose, she didn't have a chipped tooth, but she had like some facial scuffing, which isn't good considering it started off with her already looking sad. You know, and then he thanked her with a big smile, still laughing and whatever, and went on his way. And I later saw the article that he wrote in the newspaper, and it's exactly the article that he intended to write, how, oh, hey, I couldn't do a thing to her, and she choked me, and she arm locked me, and isn't it funny that this lady beat up a man? You know, just unpleasant, nasty, ugly. And he mentioned none of that, by the way. He didn't put in there that he was like jumping around and slamming her on the mat and twisting and turning and hitting her with accidental elbows and, you know, none of that. The article was about they fought, she bested him in every way, and he walked away, you know, having been choked and arm locked, and it's a good thing she didn't kill him. Ha, ha, ha. Woman beats man. You know? Which to me is just sort of a, I don't know. So that's what happened. That's the time I saw the female mixed martial arts champion of the world fight a totally untrained man.